It's not surprising. I think as a marketer, it's really interesting to see and to see those difference between meshing, the stacking, everything. You've walked us through very interesting findings, and obviously interesting opportunities. But I believe, for us as a brand, I think we just do not have the right content today to engage consumers the right way through these different mobile platforms. So at Great Eastern, we don't do TV advertising right now. Yeah. We've moved away from that. We are venturing more onto YouTube, for instance. I really love the Edeka example that you showed. So there's a shift happening. For us, it's just about really creating the content that's relevant, that will be useful, that will be something that engages on mobile or on multi-screen. We are not there yet. Definitely, we're working towards that. So it's not something I would say, that 5% you're mentioning. I hope, we're going to push the bar together. But today, we as an organization are not there yet. And it has to do with the nature of the product as well. Insurance is not necessarily,
It's true.
It's difficult to extend. You won't probably, watching your Korean movie be talking about your insurance experience on Facebook. It's quite unlikely. It's unlikely to be a good one. So we'd rather you stay away from sharing that. So today, I think, it's just maybe the maturity of that category as well. Well, I think there are, other brands and other product categories, I would say, have an easier job there because, we've seen it, the luxury industry, the alcohol, all the entertainment industry, and all these categories that have a more direct, Adidas, Nike of this world, have a more direct, they are easier to connect with content, even content they're not producing.
Right.
There's of course a lot of product placements as well happening on TV, and when it's smartly done, this is really something that you can, as a brand, leverage on for that multi-screen experience. But for us, really, we're just not quite there yet, but working towards it. I would say probably, I don't have the latest numbers, but we also know that a lot of people have, multiple devices, even multiple phones. Many of us have Blackberries and phones, plus a tablet, or if not two, in different sizes. So I think it's really not surprising. What's interesting to understand is how that's being used and how it's being used in conjunction with each other. So those were the findings.
As I talked about, that there are differences in behavior, whether it is the meshing, stacking that we're looking at, or even in the way, whether it is a simultaneous usage of screens or more of that individual usage of screens. I think there are differences. And when you go into the details of these reports and we start drilling down at a country level, there are some great insights as to what is actually driving some of those differences across markets. Sure. But at the same time, I think in these markets, there's got to be a test and learn. There are things which you can take from one market to another, and there are certain market clusters where you will have to test and learn. But these markets are different in terms of their stage of evolution, in terms of their receptivity also to a certain extent in terms of advertising, and culturally different. So yes, there are certain guidelines with studies like ad reaction, and there is a lot more other information which is available, which kind of gives you a good baseline to start with. But I would say that there is a little bit of test and learn that needs to be also done in these markets to get deeper insights. I think there is a lot to, learn. For example, in Thailand, the numbers show that 40% of the people are sharing what they're watching on TV. They're discussing it again on social media. True. That's huge. But what is actually driving that? What kind of content lets them to go ahead and share? What is it that, as marketers, how can we actually take advantage of that? So we have certain kind of guidelines which actually tell us what is it that we really need to deep dive and look into. And I guess that is the next task ahead. I think, that is the whole idea of that connectedness across screens as well. The top, sort of the title of the discussion as well, the connectedness, because at the end of the day, and in the examples that we shared before my presentation, what are we really trying to do? We're trying to make it engaging. We're trying to make it relevant. We're trying to get their attention. And then we are trying to make that work for the business, for the advertisers. Why, at the end of the day, there needs to be a call to action. There needs to be a business implication. And whichever screen that you use, that is the end objective. Right. And I think the connectedness when you're using multiple screens or within a screen making it as engaging and as relevant for people is going to be really important. When people are so time poor, when they're so attention poor, when their attention is divided across multiple screens, I think content needs to engage even more to grab their attention.
Well, we're definitely focusing on content and amplifying that content through social media right now. So I was quite happy listening to Luke and Grant before. So we're doing things right, apparently, at least in terms of share of our budget spent. So content marketing, we've started really 2 years ago at Great Eastern, creating, as part of our rebranding into a live company. We started health and wellness movement, let's call it, what we hope to be a movement soon. So we create a lot of content around living better, healthier, happier, from health to relationships, basically everything that matters in people's lives. What we have done recently is really engage on YouTube. Again, our struggle, or I would say our challenge as a very old and trusted brand is that we appear as old and we are, your granddad and grandma's insurer. And if you're 25 today, we're not necessarily top of mind. Although the brand is known, the brand perception basically is our issue. So we're trying to change that, and not quite as radically as Edeka. Supermarket did it. We also started to create material or to create content that has as a key purpose to engage these audiences we are not capturing well enough through our other channels and other type of content. So we launched earlier this year, mid-January, the Live Great TV channel on YouTube. We have 3 episodes only so far, but same. I mean, we're really, really happy and with the engagement we're getting there. Very young targets compared to what we used to have. Very quick, lots of views, subscribers, lots of engagements, lots of very different way to engage, and all based on bloggers and YouTube personalities across Singapore, Malaysia. So this has been, again, it's a very experimental. We obviously have to to see how that leads into a longer-term brand engagement, a longer-term shift in the brand perception. Right. But those are very interesting ventures, so we'll continue doing that.
I was just going to say that I think that's interesting because, I mean, this behavior change with consumers where we know that increasingly they're going to interact with multiple screens also, I wouldn't say forces, but I think it kind of is a reason for marketers like yourselves to actually take more risks. Right. And I mean, and it is something that has to be done, and I think you need to just keep pushing the envelope there in terms of how do we, get to engage this consumer.